Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm Sheila Slick, your host. And today, my special guest is Mitchell Levy. Mitchell is a 2-time TEDx speaker, including the 28th most popular in 2021, an international best-selling author of over 60 books, a certified stakeholder-centered coach, and he's also an executive coach at Marshall Goldsmith's 100 Coaches. As an executive coach, Mitchell is a sounding board, a thinking partner, and someone who can hold the mirror to generate insights for personal change. His impact has earned him a place among the world's top 200 leadership voices by Leaders Hum, number 16 in 2023, and as the number 1 thought leader in ecosystems and top 100 thought leader overall by Thinkers 360. Welcome to the show, Mitch.
Sheila, great to be here. Thank you.
I've enjoyed laughing with you even before I turn this live, right? And I mean,
well, that too. And by the way, I like Mitchell.
Well, you have a very impressive background, and I've had the pleasure of meeting you on other platforms like Clubhouse. And I know that you've created over 20 businesses in Silicon Valley alone, and you've been a chairman of NASDAQ listed company. Can you walk us through one specific moment, because I'm sure you have many, when you've had to make a decision that has changed the trajectory of your life or one of your ventures?
Yeah, of course. You know, I'm gonna say there have been many times in my life where you've had a major transformation, right? And I've morphed at least 5 times. But 2 of them that were important are times in which the world changed. So one time where the world changed was I was in 1997, I left corporate. I became a e-commerce expert. And during the dot-com days, I made a ton of revenue helping companies figure out how to use the internet inside their companies. And then somewhere around the 2000 timeframe, people no longer wanted to be involved, spend any money on this word called e-commerce. And so, and by the way, I'll do another one. COVID. I had a 6-figure publishing business between 2005 and 2020. COVID came and the business essentially didn't quite go to zero, but pretty close. And then Amazon came and ran it over with a truck a couple of times. And so what's interesting is there are times in people's lives, and particularly now with AI, where the world will change. And if you don't change with it, you will disappear, because what I was doing as an e-commerce person, what I was doing as a publisher, those businesses, for all intents and purposes, went away. And if I did not morph into what's next and figure out what's next, and by the way, the short answer, listen to your clients, listen to your friends, listen to your prospects, and what is it that they want? And then figure out what do you love doing, and then move forward in that area. But those are 2 massive times where I had a really nice revenue stream that went almost to zero.
So what was like that major lesson other than adapt, right? How do you
Oh,
under that
major.
pressure? Yeah.
Yeah, major lesson. You always have to learn, listen, adopt. Part of being credible is being coachable, and the biggest lesson though is sometimes things won't work out because it has nothing to do with you. It could be the world around you, right? So there are businesses that great ideas, just the wrong time. If you remember back in the dot-com days, there was a company that took in billions of dollars called Webvan. The goal of Webvan was to deliver food directly to your house. The infrastructure wasn't ready. It it exploded brilliantly. Just great idea, wrong time. Now we have that, right? So it's the big lesson is you could have great ideas. Um, and I'm going to say with GPT, great ideas are so easy to come by. It's about how you're going to implement them and who you're going to implement them with. That's the most important. And if you listen to your customers, another great .com examples was BlackBerry. BlackBerry invented the market and they were amazing, but they always thought that this phone needed a keypad. And even when Steve Jobs came out with the iPhone and it was so easy and so worthwhile, the technical founder of BlackBerry is like, yeah, we still need a keypad here. My customers want to hear the click. Well, guess what? They didn't. And so you've got to pay attention to the world changing around you.
I love that. So you kind of revealed your age a little when you started talking about BlackBerry and even before, like the .com.
And now the gray hair might do it too, but you never know.
So just to clarify, if you don't know what a BlackBerry was, it was after the flip phones. We had the BlackBerry, which I would say was like the top of the line secure phone that actually came with that keyboard. So you were able to type, right? Rather than
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it turns out that there was a point in time in Silicon Valley that we were not sure whether or not the BlackBerry would be the dominant platform around the world or whether or not the telephone, the cell phone would, because there's a point in time the telephone was just a flip phone. All it did is make calls. Right. And so there was a point in time we weren't sure who was going to win. Kind of interesting.
yeah, and see how it's going to continue evolving, right? Because I even just discovered something yesterday, and this is off topic, but I was on my Apple iPhone and I'm like, oh, highlights. I was going in settings. I don't know what I was looking for. And I'm like, well, what is highlight, right? It's got permission for highlights. I'm very conscious of permissions because I've coded before. And I know sometimes when you get these updates in the security, it's based on things that they've missed out on and then kind of like location services. And then they're like, you know what? We got to ask permissions. Well, highlights, apparently, it makes me feel like it is wanting to record where I am focusing my eyes and then share that data. Perhaps not my user information, but I'm like, well, why do they need that permission, right? So I don't know if at this point we're using, the heat sensors, so that we can determine with those heat maps where are people spending the time. So it's even taking it away from the human touch, the fingers. Like we're
That's
down to the
fascinating.
eyeballs, right? Like the heat. Where are you focusing on that screen? So we'll see how much
Yeah, that's
it
fascinating.
evolves.
Thank you for sharing. I'll have to spend more time looking at that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, and the other one, and I've mentioned it before, Vine was an app that came out that was all video, right? Um, and I don't know if that's the one that also had like live location. You could share videos. It was just unheard of to watch people, in real time, just sharing their location and their video at once so that they cannot broadcast. But I am on that platform still, and I'm hearing rumors that Elon's bringing that back, but with AI generated videos. So I don't know. That may be something to look out for. But you'll say, well, what is Vine? And Vine was pre TikTok.
Was it? It wasn't the same. It wasn't the same thing at the time. And once again, it's about being at the right place at the right time. And of course, many people go after the newest platforms because they want to be quote unquote an influencer in that platform. And the thing is, if it's not what you like doing, don't do it. Focus on who you are and how you show up, and you will then find those customers who are in the same vibrational area, the same types. They're interested in the same things you are.
Well, speaking about that, I know that one of your new ventures, is LinkedIn. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to with LinkedIn? And
There's I would love to. There's an audience that I focus on. It is leaders tired of slimy LinkedIn sales tactics.
that's
I was waiting for we were waiting for the smile. Aren't we all? Right? And so what I will tell you is I've been on LinkedIn since before LinkedIn was making money. I was sitting in the room with two of the five founders, and they paid me money to write and publish LinkedIn's first book. I have looked at over a couple 100,000 LinkedIn profiles. So what I do is I help those I work with focus on the 5% of functionality that delivers 80% of value. And I'm absolutely going to tell you, absolutely going to be happy to tell you what it is. The company is called Social Complement. And before I tell you what it is, let me step back. The reason I did that is that one of the things that we as humans do, we vibrate at a frequency. And if you can stay in that vibrational level, and every human, at least sometime in life, is feeling, oh man, I'm vibing. Things are really good. Well, I actually interviewed 500 thought leaders between 2019 and 2020. And by the way, this was one of the ways that I ended up figuring out what to do post the. I didn't realize COVID was coming, but this was something. What do I do post COVID, right? And and what happened when I was doing the interviews is I unlocked a superpower. And that superpower is clarity, as you know already. It's called the CPOP, your customer pointed possibilities. And I could sit with any company or any human and help them articulate where they are executing on their purpose in less than 10 words. Now, here's the cool part. If you can actually represent who you are in less than 10 words, like leaders tired of slimy LinkedIn sales tactics, what happens is if you're interested in what is that? That's an interesting playground. What do you do? Right? That changes everything. It turns out that that represents the frequency that you're vibrating at. Now, I've done this over 1,000 times. The problem is that if you are a do-it-yourself type person, you're gonna sit with me, or the CPOP's a formula, and I'm happy to gift away the formula. Right? So like the problem is that we have too many marketing cookie cutter approaches out there. It's hard for people to deploy this formula. And so when I'm sitting with over 1,000 both companies and individuals, and they're feeling in alignment, it's amazing. And I will tell you that the do-it-yourself people, 10% of the audience, they're immediately going, oh my goodness, I need to update my website, my LinkedIn, how I show up in the world. I need to change. The 10%, I've changed their life for the rest of their lives. The 90% get caught up in the chaos of day-to-day living, and they will get out of alignment somewhere between 2 hours and 2 weeks. Painful. Now, as an executive coach, one of the things that I do, if I'm working with a CEO of a Inc. 5,000 company interested in leading the future with executive abundance, I'm helping them stay in alignment. 8 months ago, I ended up purchasing a LinkedIn agency. Because for a whole lot less money, what happens when I'm working with individuals is the first thing we do is we give them their CPOP, and then we set up a bespoke LinkedIn program that focuses on the audience they're supposed to be working with. And then as they're talking with their audience, the question becomes, are they making sales? Now, if they're not making sales, then the question becomes, is it because you're talking to the wrong audience, or is it because you're selling the wrong thing? Right? And and that's part of the programs that I help put into place is helping people not just identify the alignment they think they have today, but then to fine tune it in such a way where they could live a life where they're actually living, working, playing every day in alignment. Okay. So that's what I'm doing with the LinkedIn program. And what I did say is I would give away the 5% functionality. So one of the things I do a couple times a quarter is I do a webinar. It's called "Why Are We Not Getting the Referrals We Deserve?" And what I've done is taking the 7 habits of highly effective LinkedIn social selling. And I'll walk through all 7 habits, but let me give you habit number 7. Okay. Habit number 7 is really where the gold is. The gold in LinkedIn is inside LinkedIn Messenger, because the real goal, it's not about selling in a mass for most of us, particularly professional service providers. It's not about mass selling. It's not about, getting a viral video. One of my mentors, Marshall Goldsmith, has 1.5 million followers on LinkedIn. He gets great engagement when he posts. He's never picked up a client from a post. So what it's really involved is inside LinkedIn Messenger. I like, one of the habits is celebrating life events, birthday, anniversary, new job. And as you wish somebody a happy birthday and they respond, if it's somebody who's a prospect, either a referral partner or a prospect, how do you turn that conversation into or how do you turn, that conversation into a Zoom call? And that's the 5% functionality, is using LinkedIn Messenger to have more of, actually, in essence, what you and I are doing right now.
I love that. And that's actually like a skill. That's something that you need to learn, even if you have these tools like AI, because that human touch, it makes it or break it. I can identify automatically when, it feels like it's a robot just trying to do that sales call and it almost wants you to unfriend the person. So what you're describing is genuine connection.
Yes. Actually, I sometimes I do unfriend the person if it's too many, and that's okay. It could be a bad time in their life, and most of the time, though, it's because we don't know better. There's some expert out there who's talking about how they've made a ton of money with a particular approach, and they encourage you to do what they've done, and it feels uncomfortable, it feels slimy to you. I don't want people to do that. I want you to be you. If you're living in your vibrational frequency, if you're living and doing the things you love doing, you're gonna attract the people who want to play in the playground you play in. And that's the world I wanna live in. So that's what I'm doing with the LinkedIn program.
So what would you recommend for someone that's either pivoting or changing? How often should we, and I guess I'm asking for a friend, how often should you revisit that CPOP?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, you're talking about being, vibrating. So it's making.
Yeah. It it's an interesting thing. I'll give you a generic answer. At least once a quarter, sort of check into it. You might wanna consider changing it every year or every other year. On the other hand, what's gonna happen is, as you talk to people, great example, I had my only phone call this morning prior to you, and then I've got a big webinar later today, was somebody that 4 years ago, I gifted them a CPAP, and kind of a stubborn guy, so I hope he doesn't watch this podcast, right? And it was really him, and he goes, "Oh, yeah, of course, I know that, Mitchell." And I'm, "Okay, great, glad." Um, and and this morning, as we started diving into the CPOP and his effectivity, he started talking more around not just where he's making money, but the partners that need to be part of the process for him to be able to make money. He all of a sudden got this incredible insight that said, "Oh, maybe my outreach needs to be not just for the direct customers I'm making money with, because that's he can only make money if he finds the partners to work with. Maybe my outreach needs to be the partners to work with." Now, that may require him to have more than one CPOP, right? And so it was fascinating to me. He's been using it for 4 years, and he hasn't been as successful as he wants to be. So when do you change your CPOP? If you're going after the audience, you're saying the right thing, you're having the right conversations, and you're not being as effective as you need to, you have to ask yourself, is this the right audience? And am I saying the right things or selling the right things? Now, if you know you're selling the right things, then maybe you're selling it to the wrong audience, or maybe you're somewhere in your chain, your supply chain of the partners you work with. maybe there's a different audience that if you were able to get them excited about who you are and what you did, that it would just automatically flow to you making more money on the back end. And yeah, that's the so CPOPs will change, and it's really about when you speak. I love the one leaders tired of slimy LinkedIn sales tactics because it it always makes people, oh man, because it you feel icky. I just say the words. I'm like, yuck, right? And the thing is, I'm going to help you use LinkedIn effectively so that you're not using slimy LinkedIn sales tactics, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. It may require, oh, I got a good story. How we doing it on time?
Go for it. I mean,
All right, you can decide to keep it in or not. So one of my clients is a 70-year-old man who spent a lot of time as a CFO. And he's been a client for 5 months. We came up with a CPOP for him, and it was quote unquote the best CPOP he could have come up with at the time because I hate to say it, he spent his whole life focusing on different marketing cookie cutter things. So he came up with a good CPOP. 2 months later, we were in a public meeting. He goes, Mitchell, can I change my CPOP? Now, Sheila, you know how funny that is because it's his, not mine. I'm not the keeper of his CPOP. He knew the formula of the CPOP, and I go, yeah, of course you can change your CPOP. And he goes, well, let me tell you what it is. Now, he told me what it was, and he followed the formula. But then he said, how come you're not excited about it? Well, because at the time it was just words. And I said, and I'm having a hard time not using his name, so I'm purposely trying to not use it. And I said, well, tell me why you changed it. And he said, well, over the last couple of months, this is a LinkedIn client. He goes, over the last couple of months, you put me in front of a bunch of my audience members. And in talking to them, I was reminded what I loved doing as a CFO and also what I didn't like doing as a CFO. And so I've updated my CPOP to focus on the stuff I love. And as soon as he said that, I go, I love your CPOP, right? Now, when we talked privately, I reminded him that I think he's only partially there. I think as he spends another couple months, he's going to fine tune it one more time. I didn't want to do that publicly, but I want to do that privately. And what's powerful is he knows the audience he needs to play in, and now he needs to find the right product that will allow him to be able to do the closing and make the money he wants to make.
well, so now I have two questions. You said you were going to share the formula, and I know that being, a coach, bouncing it off you isn't the same as just, giving a formula. Sometimes it's better to share it. So if you're going to share that formula, that key ingredient, and the
I
second
could.
one,
Want me to?
please, yes.
All right. So I will tell you that I'm comfortable sharing the formula because it's hard for many of us to deploy it effectively. Um, because there's still so many outside influences that are changing how we think of the world. Um, to me, this formula is very similar to a E equals MC squared. The the problem is we're talking about humans. When you talk about humans, there's a lot of variability. So the CPOP is broken into two pieces. It's always less than 10 words. And the first component of the CPOP is the who. So it's who do you serve? So for me, and I have two CPOPs, my executive coaching, who I serve is Inc. 5,000 CEOs. On what I decided on the LinkedIn stuff, I just said leaders, kind of an open-ended. Maybe I could figure out a better, a better person to use, but that's the who. Most people have a hard time because they want to make they've figured out that there are 5, 10 different who's they serve. And I'm going to say, pick one, pick where most of your revenue comes from. Yeah, but lots of people I've listened to a couple of your episodes. Lots of people go, "Oh, I serve authors, speakers, consultants, coaches." Yeah, by the time you're done listing that list, people don't hear you. Pick one. Doesn't matter. Try to elevate it so you can pick one. So it's the who, and the second part of it, from their perspective, 80% of the time is what is the pain point they're trying to get over. 20% is what is their pleasure point. So my two CPOPs are pain point, pleasure point. When the audience is a CEO, their egos are so big, they won't relate to a pain point. You got to give them a pleasure point. So that's why it's Inc. 5,000 CEOs leaving the future with executive abundance. The natural question is, Mitchell, what's executive abundance? And I tell them what it means. They're like, wait, I want that.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought. It was like the outcome, right? Where you're showing them what you get if you work with me.
And I like that, and prefer to go in that direction. But 80% of the time, for most of the people I'm working with, they get the person to raise their eyebrows with the pain point. And I'll tell you exactly why. The pain point, so leaders tired of slimy LinkedIn sales tactics, is the partner or friend. It's the referral partner, right? You're going to hear somebody complaining, hey, listen, all my clients are on LinkedIn and everything I'm doing is not working. And then people are recommending stuff, but I don't like it because it feels uncomfortable. Or I don't go to LinkedIn anymore because I get too many people selling me. But if that's where your clients are, you have to use LinkedIn, right? And it's the referral partner who, when I say the pain point, that goes, oh, wait a second, I got somebody I need to introduce you to. And so that's 80% of the time, the CPOP is a pain point. Um, as much as I would prefer it to always sort of live in an abundant state where it's a pleasure point.
I love that.
Oh, can I? So let me tell you something interesting. The reason that formula is important is because you can't just use a formula for success. Formulas are interesting. But particularly when we're talking about humans, I can give somebody a CPOP, but 90% of the time they don't know what to do with it. They need to work with somebody, potentially someone like you or someone like me, or there are lots of people who have frameworks that once they have the clarity of the CPOP, they could use a framework to deploy. So I have two frameworks, right? I'm doing my executive coaching. I'm doing the LinkedIn work. Almost every professional service provider I work with had some form of framework that they use. That's great. Let's apply the formula for the CPOP up front, because if you get that level of clarity with your client, your frameworks will work that much better.
I love that. Well, you've accomplished so much. What is your next milestone?
Hmm. The bigger milestone is getting the PhD. So I've done the coursework on the PhD, and I was starting the dissertation. And when I first started, I was focused on credibility. I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility. Let's do a PhD on that. And there was something about it that didn't quite feel right. I mean, I hadn't done the research. I felt like I got that covered. And that's the book Credibility Nation has done that. Then I started focusing on clarity because I've got that clarity superpower. And that didn't feel right either. And when I landed on executive abundance, I'm recognizing that that is a way in which it's a framework for running companies differently than the way companies are run today. That felt so comfortable for me. Now, in order to live in that world, milestone one was pick up a keynote where I get to speak on executive abundance. Finish that. Milestone number two is write the book. The reason why the book is important, so the book is actually written, not will be published shortly. I needed to, when I talk to people about executive abundance, particularly my audience, like, Mitchell, what can I read? I had a one-page PDF. I'm like, no, I need to give you a blueprint. I need to give you the book. So I'm doing the book. And then as soon as the book is done, I put my dissertation on hold for about 6 to 7 months. As soon as the book is done, then I go back to the dissertation, which is going to be on executive abundance. So there'll be a second version of the book, which will have much more research and other things on it whenever the dissertation's done. So the the milestone is the dissertation. It's not so I could call myself Dr. Levy, right? That's not the milestone. The milestone is I'm being forced to do the level of research that's necessary to be able to share a framework that I think is so transformational that I could share the framework in such a way where it has a lot of research behind it. And so that's really the milestone is having that done and having some companies, some really big companies talking about, oh, we're focusing on executive abundance.
Well, I am intrigued. Well, I love it. So, can you share how our listeners can get in touch with you?
Oh, sure. So best way, go to my website. So it's mitchelllevy.com, mitchellevy.com. You could see how I'm putting myself out there, programs we have, if you have any interest. And really, if this has inspired you to have a conversation, you could also book time directly on my calendar. And that's at mitchellevy.com.
So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Nice to spend time with you again.
And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership.